Hey folks, welcome back to True Crime Stories, where we cover the most thrilling true crime stories. Before we get going, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for me. Thanks. And now let's get into today's story.
Okay, so get this. We're diving into a case today from Cherry Grove, Washington.
Cherry Grove.
Yeah. You know that, like, picture-perfect town, famous for its cherry blossom festival.
Oh, yeah.
Well, turns out beneath the sweet scent of all those blooms, there's a story of tragedy and mystery.
Sounds intriguing.
Yeah, it all centers around Nina Fields, a comedian who returned to Cherry Grove after making it big in the city.
Okay.
But her homecoming, sadly ended in tragedy when she was found dead under a cherry tree during the festival.
Oh, wow, during the festival.
Yeah. And while the initial ruling points to an accident, something just doesn't add up.
I see. So we're looking at a potential something more than just an accident.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so what kind of sources do we have to work with on this one?
So we've got police reports, witness statements, and even some local newspaper articles from the Cherry Grove Chronicle.
Okay, so a pretty good mix of information to try and piece together what really happened.
Exactly. And, it seems Nina wasn't just any comedian. Her routines, they kind of touched on some raw nerves in Cherry Grove.
Oh, so she was maybe ruffling some feathers.
Yeah, maybe hinting at a past she wanted to leave behind.
Interesting.
So the question is, could her death be connected to something she knew, something someone wanted to keep buried?
Okay, yeah, so we're talking potential motives, secrets, maybe some small town drama we need to unpack.
Exactly. And we're going to be talking about a town where everyone knows everyone, and secrets have a way of coming back to haunt you.
I love it. All right, let's get into it.
So let's start by breaking down who's who in this small town thriller.
Okay, sounds good.
We've got Daniel Carter, an old flame of Nina's, who was seen having a heated argument with her just hours before her death.
An old flame, huh? Always a good place to start in these kinds of cases.
Right. And the police reports describe him as charming, but also prone to jealousy and aggression, especially when he's been drinking.
So a bit of a volatile personality then.
Yeah, and the reports suggest he might have a history of lashing out, which makes his argument with Nina even more suspicious.
For sure, that definitely puts him high on the suspect list.
Okay, and then there's Clara Morrison, a local florist, and Nina's childhood friend.
Okay, so someone who knew Nina well.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
their relationship, it seems to have soured over the years.
Oh, how so?
Well, there are hints of a rivalry between them, possibly fueled by Nina's success and her return to Cherry Grove.
So maybe a bit of jealousy mixed in there.
Right. Some witnesses even suggested that Clara might have, felt threatened by Nina's presence,
Threatened? In what way?
both personally and professionally.
Okay, so we've got some potential motives brewing here, both with Daniel and Clara.
Exactly. And then let's not forget Elena Towns. She's an ambitious reporter for the Cherry Grove Chronicle.
The reporter, huh? They always seem to be in the thick of things.
I know, right? And it sounds like she saw this case as her ticket to bigger things, maybe even a Pulitzer.
Classic ambitious journalist in a small town.
Yeah, her articles and interviews suggest she was digging deep, maybe even bending the rules a bit to get the scoop.
Well, they do say you got to be ruthless to get to the truth sometimes.
Okay, and last but certainly not least, we have Henry Baxter, the town librarian.
The librarian. Don't tell me he's a suspect, too.
He seems like a harmless bookworm at first, right? But something tells me he's got more to him than meets the eye.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What makes you say that?
Well, he dropped some really intriguing hints in his interviews about a past hit-and-run case involving Clara's sister, a case that might be more connected to Nina's death than anyone initially realized.
Wow. Okay, so we've got a potential cold case connection. This is getting good.
So there you have it. We've got our cast of characters, each with their own secrets and potential motives. But let's rewind to that night at the festival.
All right, let's set the scene.
The sources describe it as, straight out of a Hitchcock film.
Okay, I can picture it, the vibrant cherry blossoms, the lively music, the scent of food stalls.
Yeah, and then this sudden tragedy that casts a shadow over everything.
It's chilling.
The sources really hone in on this argument between Nina and Daniel right before her death.
Right, you mentioned that earlier. What did the witnesses say about it?
They describe it as intense, even volatile, with some suggesting Daniel might have been intoxicated.
So things were definitely heated between them.
Exactly, and here's where it gets really interesting. The police couldn't fully corroborate Daniel's alibi for the time of Nina's death.
Oh, so there were holes in his story.
He claims he was nowhere near the platform when she fell, but there are gaps.
Interesting. Very interesting.
And get this, Nina sent Daniel a cryptic text message moments before her fall.
No way, seriously. What did it say?
It mentioned the truth and rebellion, almost as if she knew something dangerous was about to happen.
Wow, that's a bombshell.
Right.
Yeah, that definitely changes things.
And it seems like she wasn't just joking around on stage either. Her comedy act, it often touched on some pretty dark themes, possibly hinting at secrets and scandals she was uncovering.
So her comedy was almost like a form of social commentary.
Yeah, she was definitely pushing some buttons.
It makes you wonder if she was getting too close to the truth for someone's comfort.
Right. And that's what we're going to try and figure out. So we start with this initial assumption of an accident, but as we dig deeper, we find these tantalizing clues.
Right. A volatile ex-boyfriend, a mysterious text message, and a comedian who might have known a little too much about the town's dark side.
Exactly. We're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy.
Definitely not. We're in Cherry Grove, and it seems like this town has its own share of secrets.
So buckle up because we're about to go on a wild ride.
I'm right. Let's dive deeper. So I'm really curious to see what the autopsy report says. Does it shed any light on whether Nina's death was truly an accident or something more sinister?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the report, well, it kind of adds another layer to this whole puzzle.
Oh, how so? What did they find?
Well, the cause of death was blunt force trauma.
That's consistent with the fall, right?
Exactly. But there's also a mention of some pre-existing conditions that might have made Nina more vulnerable.
Pre-existing conditions like what? Do they go into detail?
The report is a bit vague on specifics, but it seems like Nina might have had some prior injury, something that could have made the impact of the fall, more severe.
Right.
And while the sources don't pinpoint a specific injury, they do hint at Nina struggling with some physical and emotional pain.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, remember how her comedy often went to those dark, really personal places?
Right, right.
Well, it's possible she was working through some pretty deep-seated issues on stage.
That makes sense. I mean, comedy can be a powerful way to process trauma.
Absolutely.
So was there anything else in the autopsy report that stood out to you?
Yeah, we can't forget about the toxicology report.
Right, of course. What did that show?
Well, it showed that Nina had alcohol and some traces of antidepressants in her system.
So that could have definitely played a role in her fall, right?
It's certainly a possibility. The sources describe her as being a bit, reckless, especially when she'd had a few drinks.
So maybe she wasn't thinking clearly, and it led to a misstep, a tragic accident fueled by a mix of substances and emotional turmoil.
Yeah, exactly. It's possible.
Okay, so the physical evidence doesn't give us a clear-cut answer then.
Not really. Seems like we need to dig into the human side of this story, the relationships, the hidden motive.
Right, a tangled web of small-town life.
Exactly. So let's look at those interviews that Detective Reynolds conducted.
Okay, good idea. Let's start with Daniel. What did he have to say for himself?
Well, his interview transcripts, they're pretty revealing.
Oh, really? How so?
He admits to arguing with Nina, but insists it was just a, trivial disagreement, nothing serious.
Uh-huh.
He claims he walked away after the argument and that he wasn't anywhere near the platform when Nina fell.
But didn't we say earlier that his alibi doesn't totally check out?
Yeah, you're right. The police, they couldn't verify his whereabouts for a pretty crucial window of time.
Okay, so there are gaps.
Yep, his friends, they couldn't confirm they were with him, and his statements about how long he was gone, they're all over the place.
Classic suspicious behavior, right?
Okay, so what about Clara? I mean, she must have been shaken by Nina's death, especially given their complicated history.
Right. That's a good point. What does she have to say?
Her interview, well, it's a roller coaster of emotions.
Like what kind of emotion?
Grief, obviously.
Yeah.
But there's also this, palpable sense of guilt and confusion.
Guilt. That's interesting. Why would she feel guilty?
Well, she portrays Nina as volatile and troubled,
Okay.
but maintains that she couldn't have been involved in the fall.
So she's distancing herself, but there's something more there.
You remember that envelope that Clara found? The one with the photos of Nina and that man with the aggressive reputation?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Do we know if that man is Daniel?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And, Detective Reynolds, he thought so too. He investigated it thoroughly. But the sources, they're frustratingly vague on whether the man in the photos is actually Daniel or someone else entirely.
Oh, man, come on. Sources, give us something to work with here.
I know, right? It's like a classic cliffhanger.
So we've got Daniel, the volatile ex.
Right.
And then Clara, the conflicted friend. But what about Alina, the ambitious reporter?
Yeah. What about her? She wasn't just covering the story, was she?
I mean, she definitely had her own agenda going on.
Totally. She was determined to uncover the truth, even if it meant bending the rules.
And she had access to all those police records and interviews.
Well,
Right?
exactly. which
Wow.
gave her a pretty unique perspective on the investigation.
And don't forget, she wasn't afraid to dig into Nina's personal life.
Oh, yeah, that's right. She even found some of Nina's social media posts.
Really? What were those about?
Well, they hinted at a darker side to Cherry Grove posts that might have, ruffled some feathers.
So Nina was using social media as an outlet to expose what she saw as hypocrisy in the town.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder if her online activity made her a target. Did she cross a line that someone wasn't willing to forgive?
Right, because it's one thing to joke about these things on stage, but it's another to put it out there on social media for everyone to see.
And then there's the whole connection to that hit and run that killed Clara's sister years ago.
Right. At first it seemed totally irrelevant, but now it feels like a crucial piece of the puzzle, doesn't it?
Totally. And remember Henry Baxter, the librarian?
Yeah, what about him?
Well, he seems to hold the key to this whole connection.
Mm-hmm.
He has this deep knowledge of Cherry Grove's past.
Right.
And he drops these intriguing hints about a possible link between the hit and run and Nina's family.
Wow, so it's like a long-held secret, a simmering grudge that suddenly resurfaced with tragic consequences.
Exactly. So we're dealing with layers upon layers of secrets, lies, and tangled relationships. It's starting to feel less like a simple accident and more like a carefully constructed, web of deceit.
It's like the perfect facade of this charming town is cracking, revealing this dark underbelly of secrets and grudges.
Right. But even with all these layers, did the police ever find any solid evidence to actually support the theory of foul play?
Well, the sources, they describe a very meticulous forensic investigation,
Huh.
but the physical evidence, it was mostly inconclusive.
Really? Nothing.
No signs of a struggle. The blood spatter patterns, they were consistent with the fall.
So no smoking gun.
The only red flags were the alcohol and antidepressants in Nina's system.
Right. But like we said, that's open to interpretation.
Exactly.
So if there was no smoking gun, what direction did the investigation take?
Well, it seems like Detective Reynolds, he shifted his focus to the psychological aspects of the case,
Okay.
like the motives and the mental states of the people involved. He actually consulted with a forensic psychologist.
Whoa, to analyze the interview transcripts.
Yep. Hoping to uncover some, hidden truths beneath the surface.
So we're talking like a psychological thriller unfolding within this larger mystery.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm hooked.
Yeah.
Did the psychologist offer any insights?
Their analysis, well, it was a turning point.
Oh, really? In what way?
They pointed to Daniel Harder's history of violence and alcohol abuse.
Right.
Suggesting that while he might not have intentionally harmed Nina, his actions that night could have contributed to her death.
So they're saying he might be responsible for Nina's fall, even if it wasn't premeditated.
The sources are careful not to directly accuse Daniel, but they do highlight the psychologist's conclusion.
And what was that?
That his behavior that night, it was reckless and irresponsible, especially given his past.
And let's not forget about that cryptic text message Nina sent to Daniel right before she died.
Right. Maybe it was a provocation, a challenge that triggered him in some way.
It's a chilling thought. The text message is never fully explained, but it's clear Nina was holding on to something, a piece of information she believed was crucial.
Right. Like, what was she willing to risk her life for?
It's almost as if she was playing with fire, knowing that revealing certain truths could have devastating consequences.
And with this new psychological angle, Detective Reynolds, aided by Clara and Elena, they decided to delve deeper into Nina's past.
Interesting, trying to understand her better.
Yeah, they looked into her relationships, her involvement in the underground comedy scene, hoping to uncover what secrets she might have been about to expose.
Man, the tension is building. It feels like we're on the verge of a major revelation.
And as the investigation intensifies, the atmosphere in Cherry Grove thickens, suspicions grow, rumors spread, and that charming town facade, it continues to crumble. Will the truth set them free, or will it shatter everything they thought they knew about their community?
All right, so we're left with this tangled web of secrets, and a comedian who's pushing boundaries with her act and this town that's on edge. What happens next?
Well, the investigation takes a fascinating turn. You see, Detective Reynolds starts to zero in on that connection between Nina's death and that unsolved hit-and-run that killed Clara's sister all those years ago.
Oh, right.
Remember Henry Baxter, the librarian?
Yeah.
Well, his hints about a link between the two families, it really got the detective thinking.
Okay, and Claire was doing her own digging, right? Desperate for answers about her sister's death, and now Nina's too.
Exactly. Her search leads her to some old photographs.
Photos. Of what?
Well, they connect Nina's family to a pretty shady figure in Cherry Grove's past.
Okay, someone with a bad reputation.
Yeah, someone known for, his intimidating presence and possible connections to some illegal activities.
Wait, are we talking organized crime here?
Yeah.
Like a mob boss hiding behind the cherry blossoms?
Not quite a mob scene, but the sources suggest that this individual had a hand in some, less than legal dealings in Cherry Grove.
Okay.
And it seems that Nina's family might have been entangled in his web.
Okay, so picture this.
Yeah.
Nina stumbles upon this information about her family, right? Maybe realizes they weren't who she thought they were
Uh-huh.
and starts incorporating it into her act. She's pushing buttons, maybe even threatening to expose the truth.
It's a compelling theory, especially when you consider that cryptic text message she sent to Daniel right before her death.
Right, right. Was she trying to warn him, or was she challenging him to confront his own demons? Demons that might have been connected to this shady figure from the past.
It's definitely a possibility.
But what does Daniel have to do with all of this? What's his connection?
This is where things take a really shocking turn.
Oh,
Remember those photos Clara found?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out they show Nina with a man who's sporting a very distinctive tattoo.
okay, a tattoo, and?
And guess who else has the same tattoo?
Don't tell me, Daniel.
Not Daniel. The sources reveal that the man with the tattoo is none other than the mayor of Cherry Grove.
Whoa, hold on, the mayor. What could he possibly have to do with Nina's death?
Well, this is where the past and the present start to intertwine. The sources heavily imply that the mayor was involved in covering up that hit and run that killed Claire's sister all those years ago.
So he had a motive to keep things quiet, to protect his secret.
Hmm.
And Nina, with her probing comedy and her family's connection to this dark past, she posed a real threat.
Exactly. It seems the mayor used his influence to ensure the investigation into Nina's death was swept under the rug, quickly labeled an accident to avoid any unwanted scrutiny that might unearth the truth about the hit and run.
But Clara wasn't going to let it go, was she?
No, she was determined to get justice for her sister and now for Nina, too.
Driven by grief and that thirst for the truth, right?
Exactly. She confronts the mayor at a town meeting armed with those photos demanding answers.
I can only imagine the tension in that room, what happened when she confronted him.
Complete chaos erupts. Clara accuses the mayor of covering up her sister's death and suggests that he might have even had a hand in silencing Nina.
Wow, a public takedown of epic proportions.
It was, how did the mayor respond?
Yeah, what happened?
Well, faced with all this mounting evidence and the outrage of the community, he crumbles. He resigns in disgrace.
So the truth comes out.
It does. He never directly admits to any involvement in Nina's death. But the sources strongly suggest that his actions, his cover-up of the hit-and-run it created this ripple effect, a climate of fear and silence that ultimately led to this tragedy.
So what about Daniel? Did he face any consequences for his actions that night?
While Daniel was never officially charged with a crime, the weight of his actions, his connection to Nina, it really haunted him. He eventually leaves Cherry Grove seeking a fresh start.
And Claire, did she find any peace?
It seems that uncovering the truth brought her a sense of closure. She was finally able to grieve for her sister, and for Nina, she actually channels her pain into something positive, establishes a support group for people in Cherry Grove who've been touched by loss and trauma.
That's amazing. And what about Elena, the ambitious reporter?
Elena publishes a powerful expose in the Cherry Grove Chronicle detailing the investigation, the cover-up, and the devastating impact of Nina's death on the community.
So even in tragedy, there's a possibility for growth, for positive change.
Absolutely. This case is a powerful reminder that even in the small town where everyone thinks they know each other's secrets, the truth has a way of bubbling to the surface.
It's a chilling story, but also a hopeful one. It shows that even in the face of unimaginable loss, there's always hope for healing, for accountability, and for creating a better future. This deep dive has taken us through a whirlwind of emotions, a roller coaster of twists and turns, and ultimately it leaves us pondering the complexities of human nature, the power of secrets, and the enduring strength of the human spirit.